Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 2022 meeting of the Lower Makefield Township Historical Commission. I'm joined by Tom and Chris tonight. Helen can't make it. Hopefully Victor will be able to join us a little bit later. And we'll start to move through the agenda and kind of tackle a couple of the topics. So the first topic on the agenda was the approval of the minutes, but we need to wait till we have a quorum. So why don't we just put that on hold and see if Victor comes. On existing business, what I actually did was just start to look at the topics that we had identified in our goals and objectives and listed them here. So let's kind of go through real quick. The first one was to catalog the township-owned materials on township history and historic resources. And Chris was taking the lead. And Chris, I know, if I recall correctly, that you're not going to have an answer on the grant proposal till December 1st. Is that correct?
Sometime in early December. They didn't give us a hard date, but yeah, sometime in early December.
Right, so don't have that. Okay. And as we were just kind of talking about before we started, there is some materials in the basement room over at the township building, and Jim Majewski asked us to either sort through it or they were just going to, box it up and put it back with the Raiders of the Lost Ark, So, and I said that we would try to get over there and sort through it. I mean, Chris and I were there before with Helen. There's a lot of copies and duplicates and a lot of things which could just be recycled easily. Probably most interesting was there's some good information on the history of the Historical Commission, which we definitely should keep, and then we'll look for any information on the history of property. So Chris, if you could send, Tom said he would be available too. So if you could send some dates when you're available, and we'll find out when we're available, and then I'll arrange with Jim Majewski for us to have access. Okay.
Perfect. I'll send that out tonight after the meeting.
Okay, thanks. The second topic was we were developing a YouTube series on the Lower Makefield Township history, and Victor was looking into this as background. But I had reached out to him and asked him if he could help us create a Facebook content calendar. And if you remember in our last meeting, which was September, Helen had said that Jim Majewski wanted the commission to take over that the one site and have regular posts on the history of the township. And what Victor actually did is he actually wrote a few posts down, actually 2 of them, and sent them to me. So what I'm going to do is forward them to you just for comments and feedback. I kind of wanted to know where he got the material from, where he sourced it from, but let's see if we can maybe just discuss that by email. And if we're okay, then I'll reach out to Helen and see if we can get access to that Facebook account. And Victor was saying he thinks it would be good if we were being able to post about 2 per month, and I think that's probably good. We can get those 2 sorted out, and then when we meet in December, figure out how to do the next 2. Sound good?
Yep.
Good.
All right, I'll forward that with some comments. Please respond, and then we'll get back to Victor and on that. So, Tom, I know that the third topic is the resubmission of Patterson Farm to the National Register of Historic Places. And I recall in October, you and Helen had arranged a time to meet. So could you update us on how that's going?
Sure. So Helen and I met about 3 weeks ago, I guess, at her house. And she walked me through a lot of the material that she already has. The woman's a wealth of knowledge. It's unbelievable. And her idea is to pull in Edgewood Village into the Patterson Farm National Historic Registry application, because she thinks that, and I agree with her, that it's really Edgewood Village that was the hub of everything that was going on around this section of Lower Makefield. And what we agreed to was, she goes, I'm not a numbers person. You're probably a better numbers person than I am. And so that was she identified the families that she thought were important associated with Patterson Farm, the farms around Patterson Farm and Edgewood Village. And she asked me to go through census records and look at things like who was living there, how many people were living on a given farm, what was the value of the farm, how was the farm taxed, what was the tax rate, what was the value of that, how many farm implements did they have? How many animals did they have? What did they grow? How much did they grow? So I've been sinking my teeth into that over the last couple of weeks.
And where did she get the information from? Is it in a?
Well, so some of it had been sort of previously pulled together by somebody else. I don't know who, but most of it I'm getting offline. Believe it or not, this census data online that has this
Okay.
information.
Very cool. All right. And I know that I have forwarded you some stuff around, like, I guess in Bucks County as a whole with crop yields and what the averages were per farm. Are you getting any of that information?
I am including that. When did you send that to me? I don't recall seeing that.
When you and I I guess it was in late October after I got back from vacation. We had an exchange. There was like a day or two where we just exchanged about 4 or 5 emails. And I think one of the things I sent over to you was, it came over as a link because it's like 25 megabytes, but I said, hey, this might be useful for you because it has some information around agriculture in Bucks County at that time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I remember that. Yeah, I'll go back and sift through that as well.
Okay.
Also, you sent me I was unaware that Edgewood Village was already on the National Historic Registry.
Yeah.
So you sent me that. How did you get a copy of that? Because when I went online, it says it wasn't digitally available.
Yeah, I guess I got it from Jim. Jim has a Google Drive, and we should all have access to it, where he has a bunch of stuff from the township on there. That's related to the historical commission, and it was on there.
Okay, and that should have a lot of information too. So
yeah,
that should be useful.
Hey, Victor, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. We were just going through the existing business. But before we do that, let me circle back to the first item, which was the approval of the minutes for June and September. So let me ask, did anybody have any comments or question on those minutes?
I don't think so.
Nope.
Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Any objections?
Negative.
So approved. Good. I'll forward them on to Katie so we can get them onto the site. Thank you. So let's go back. So real quick, Victor, we went through existing business. The first was around cataloging the township owned materials. And what I had said was there was some information in the basement of the township building that we need to go through. And so Chris and Tom and I are going to try to find a date to go over and sort through that. You're welcome to join us if you'd like. Okay. Chris and I looked at it once before. It's a lot of duplicates we can recycle, and there's some information on the historical commission, but we're going to try to find a morning just to go through that. So once we have a date, I could put it out to the whole commission if anybody's interested in joining. Okay.
Yeah, if I'm available, I'm more than willing to help.
Great, thank you. Then we talked a little bit about the Facebook content that you had sent over, and I didn't get a chance to forward it to everyone. Well, I'll forward it to everyone for their review, but talk us a little bit about, how you see us using Facebook and, where you got the information for the first 2 posts.
Yeah, so I was just kind of like browsing through what Helen had done before with the Facebook page, and it was just really like highlighting like historical pieces or like any photos or stuff like that we had. I actually I tried accessing Penn State's archives for some information, and for some reason at the time it wasn't working. Found another site just below that, and I found this neat atlas that's actually part of the State Library of Pennsylvania, and it had some drawings of the farm, which was Thomas Yardley's farm on Dollington, and then also a whole actual map of Lower Makefield that was drawn by him.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's cool. I mean, yeah, looking at that online, you find a lot of interesting databases that have things that in the township we may not even have. So
yeah, I did look in the drive and everything, and I didn't even see it in there. That's why I mentioned to you about, getting permissions to actually upload it to there, because from the actual copies that I found online, they were pretty high quality and yet pretty good resolution too, in terms of if you want to reproduce them and print them, or put them on Facebook.
Yeah, I'll talk to Jim about getting access. Everyone has access, so they can write access to that too, so we can upload things. But we should just keep if you don't mind, keep either a list or just a sort of bookmark so that we know, what other resources are out there besides what we have here in the township,
I will do.
And when, if you're able to join us when we go to the township building, I'll show you some of the resources that are there. So it's all printed, of course, but so you can at least see what's available.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so on the resubmission, I guess, Tom, have you guys thought about a date for when you want to do that or like to have the application ready?
Helen and I agreed to circle back with each other next week. So I guess to see, where each of us are. When I do that, I'll try and get her to see if we can agree to a date.
Right. So I guess at some point, we've got to think about the process, whether we have to actually have that reviewed by the Board of Supervisors or whether we can just have it reviewed by the township management in order to resubmit it. It should just be the township management. I mean, that's the only people who reviewed the grant.
Okay,
Okay,
sounds good.
good. The other objective was on the repairs and cleanup at Slate Hill Cemetery. And I had sent you guys some couple things. One is when I went over there with Jim and Derek, just to have a look at the cemetery itself. I sent some pictures so you guys saw, how some of the issues that we have. So where Slate Hill Cemetery is, right? Yardley Marksville Road, just outside the borough. You can see there's some issues. You see it from the road with the wall along Yardley Morrisville. There's some issues with dead trees, and also, we were able to get some quotes, and there were obviously a lot more money than we thought. So I mean, the removal of the dead trees and some of the cleanup is about $10,000. We should be able to fit that into the budget. But the wall repair, the issue with the wall repair is that there is this one part of the wall that's all cemented over, and the fieldstone isn't good underneath that. So we need new fieldstone to replace it. So the estimate is anywhere from $100,000 to $130,000, right? So that's not something you're going to swallow in one bite. So I was talking to Jim Majewski a little bit about what to do. Helen also has said that beyond those immediate repairs, we got to start looking at resetting some of the gravestones there because they're sinking into the ground or they've fallen over or they've just been moved, right? Some of them actually need to even be recut. So what I was talking to Jim about was actually putting together a master plan for the cemetery for, kind of restoring the cemetery and getting some estimates around what that might look like, not just from next year's perspective, but maybe a 2 to 3 year perspective, right? And then beginning to socialize that with the Board of Supervisors so they understand what the issues are there and how much it's going to cost. And again, there's some plan that's going to be done over the next couple of years in order to get that done. So in order to do that plan, I mean, something I could try to do myself, but it might be something that we can get a grant for. There's a Keystone Planning Grant, and we might be able to apply for a Keystone Planning Grant in order to get some money to do that. So I'm looking into that right now. I reached out to someone around who would be a good service provider to do that for us. I have a call onto them. And then, I guess the idea would be to work with them in order to do a grant submission in first quarter of next year in order to build a master plan. So that's my current thinking on that. If that doesn't work, then maybe we just try to build the master, do it ourselves. Won't be as professional, but it still should be functional. And I'll see what we can get. I mean, I think just one more point for next year, I think removing the dead trees and doing the cleanup, I think we'll get into the budget for next year. It's just the wall repair is what's going to be very expensive.
Who made the assessment that the field stone under the cemented over wall is not good?
So the director of public works, he reached out to someone that he knows that actually did some work on wall repair along the Delaware Canal, and he came out and did the assessment on that.
Okay.
And I mean, you're right, Tom. We can't just go with one assessment. We need to get multiple ones. But again, it's not something that it's just really easy to do. I thought we could put it in next year's budget and just be done with it. It's going to be a little bit more than that, and therefore we need to start thinking about creating a plan.
Joe, when you talked about a service provider, are you talking about a service provider to write the grant or a service provider to put the master plan together?
The latter, Chris, the
Okay, cool.
latter. I would
That's what I
write the grant. So, the service provider is, someone who would come in and say, it's because there's a planning grant and a construction grant with Keystone, so this would be a planning grant.
I'm happy to help you with the grant as well, if you
Okay.
want some help.
Thank you. Yeah. And then again, they can come in and look at it. But I also was looking at, online, just doing some research on, maintaining historic cemeteries, and the National Park Service has a lot of good information in that. And actually, one of the things they talk about is create a master plan. And they have some information on doing that. So I can look at that too. But again, if we can get a planning grant to have someone come in, do it professionally, get some, I guess what I'm looking for is not just what work needs to be done, but to get cost estimates for the work that needs to be done. So that's what I would want to be, taking to the Board of Supervisors and saying, hey, look, this is on the National Register of Historic Places. We need to be maintaining it. This is what's going to look like year 1, year 2, year 3, So I'll follow up on that in December. If we find someone who's interested in working with us, we'll do the application. The application is due March 1st, but I was hoping to maybe we just knock it out in January for the grant.
Cool.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. New business. So there's 2 items on new business. I'm going to talk about America 250 a little bit, and then we'll go through the RFP. Did you know that coming up is the 250th anniversary of the birthday of the United States? So it's 2026. And when I met with Jim Majewski, we basically started talking. And like Tom, you talked about Edgewood Village being on the National Register, and so is Slate Hill. And there's going to be a lot that's going on in this area around that anniversary. Philadelphia is planning a lot of activities. I know Washington Crossing is planning some activities. And so the real question is is Lower Makefield going to participate, or is it just going to be, a place that people drive through as they go from Philadelphia up to Washington Crossing, So I had a chance to meet with the person who runs Parks and Rec. I forgot her name right now. Here's Monica Tierney. And she was very excited to hear about this, especially since it's still a few years in advance, and said, they would be willing to work with us around planning some events that have to do with the 250th anniversary. But what they need from us is to know what about Lower Makefield Township's history do we want to display or put on display here, So I thought it would be a good discussion. I was hoping that Helen would be here for that discussion. So maybe what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of background work on this. I'm going to go to visit Bucks County, for example, find out if they have any cross Bucks County groups that are working on this, or if other townships in the area are working on it. And then maybe when Helen's back next time, we can kind of brainstorm, some area, some things in our history. Like, do we want to highlight Edgewood Village, right? And, Tom, the work you're talking about, the relationship between the village and the farms around that. Do we want to highlight the importance of Slate Hill Cemetery? And if so, we can get back to Monica with a few ideas like that, and then she can start talking about what kind of events we could put on. The good news is that we have about 3 years to plan. So.
Yeah. The trick is going to be coming up with events that are going to make it interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
And it might be events, it might be displays, it might be kind of an ongoing display, So she was open to all, but she said that, look, we can do that. We can get volunteers to come in and help. She said, but we need the subject matter, and that's where we need the help from you guys. So.
Yeah, the one thing that comes to mind immediately would be, since farming is such an important aspect of all of this, demonstrations on how farming was done in 1776, set something up on the Patterson Farm.
Right. Could we do something like that? But
Cool.
I'll do some more background work on that. And then when Helen's back next time, we'll have a brainstorming session. and at least get some topics over to Monica, and then it'll be something for us to work on next year. Okay, so the RFP, so the Ad hoc Property Committee, just to kind of refresh your memories, they were tasked by the Board of Supervisors to develop a master plan for Patterson Farm, and they were allocated $300,000 in order to do that. So what they have done is they've reached out to Avison Young in order to put together an RFP to recruit people to come in and solicit vendors for doing the master plan, right? So the RFP I sent you is for that purpose, right? It's to be sent out to groups that have a background in historic preservation, get them to provide information on how they would build the master plan, as well as the cost of that. And then hopefully by the end of this year, having already selected one of those groups so that we can start on the master plan development in January. So I just got that last night and forwarded it over to everyone. Did anyone have a chance to look at it? It's 7 pages. I looked at it real quick. I mean,
Yeah, I looked at it.
Any questions or comments on it?
It wasn't real specific. And one thing that struck me, unless I missed it, was it never specifically stated that whomever they get to come in needs to be experienced in historic preservation and or certified if those kinds of things exist. At least I didn't see that mentioned. I think that's important.
The project manager is Jennifer Stark, and Jennifer serves on our historic architectural review board. She had hand selected 5 vendors to send it out to who are qualified, but you're right, they should at least give some justification or talk about their experience in that area.
Well, it does request some sort of CV or a resume from these vendors. But I just thought specifically stating in that we're only going to be soliciting proposals from people that have direct experience in historic preservation, and I'm sure there are some certifications out there that people can have that make them qualified to do these kinds of things.
Right.
And if so, they should have them.
Well, at least when they come in, they look about the project team, they say the description of the project team, key resumes, they should be highlighting that on there. I mean, there should be well represented that there are people with master's degrees in historic preservation that are on that team. So
So maybe it's covered by that.
No, I mean, like you said, we can get all kinds of people that respond to this. I mean, we can't limit it to just those 5 that Jennifer did. So we should, put a little bit of background into that, Put a little context so that we don't waste our time reviewing responses from firms that aren't qualified.
I mean, we had an issue a while back, right, with the shutters on the Satterthwaite house.
Was that on Satterthwaite or is that on the Janney house?
I'm not sure.
It's on Janney, yeah.
Yeah, and so we don't want to repeat of that.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments?
That's all I had.
Are you guys providing a link to the report as part of this?
I'm sorry, for what, Chris?
So for background, providing a list of the ad hoc committees report as part of the RFP.
I think there's a description, but there's not a link.
Maybe something to consider.
All report. Okay.
Maybe you send it as part of the covering email, if not in the proposal, but probably good background for them to have.
Okay. The one comment that I had down towards was a scope of services or interviews, presentations, so under interviews and presentations. They say, how will you interact with the committee during the process? I also wanted to know how will they interact with the public during the process, right? Because it shouldn't be just something that, 5 or 6 people on a committee are involved in, we should, people, care about this, and we should be out having some public forums, in terms of getting input. So I like to add that too, also.
That's a good point.
Yep, great.
Anything else on that?
Nope.
Okay, like I said, this will go out soon, maybe even this week. We have a kickoff workshop scheduled for next week, on the 17th. Hopefully we have someone in place by the end of the year. In January, we can start getting rolling with this development of the plan. They were all the topics that I had for tonight. Any other topics from your side?
I'm good.
Okay. Well, then I guess that's it. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, no objections, then thank you guys, and we'll talk soon, okay?
All right. Good night,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.